Good morning, everyone. It's Alex from Board Game Co. over here, and it's time for another Kickstarter roundup. There are 10 Kickstarters we'll be covering today, and honestly, I usually try to aim for one of these videos every 2 weeks, but I end up doing them far faster because I don't want to end up covering 20 Kickstarters in a single video. So I end up waiting till I have I don't know, 5 to 10 or whatnot, and then I jump into it. Now, starting off the bat, we have S.H.E.L. I'm going to go into this very briefly because I already did a full video on it, and this is going to be a long video already. But if you want, you can see that other video up top. There's a little link there. But S.H.E.L. is the newest Kickstarter by Mythic Games. It is kicking it out of the park. 1.2 million so far. 5 days to go. It's probably going to get close to that 1.5 range, making it amongst the most successful Kickstarters, possibly the most successful. I have to double check what Joan of Arc did, but this is definitely killing it. Now, at its core, S.H.E.L. is a story-based, narrative-driven game with tons of gorgeous minis, the usual, Mythic Games treatment, amazing production quality from what we see so far, and their games to date have had amazing production quality, so you can probably expect to see that in the final product as well. I am backing this because it is a safe back in my opinion. And by the disclaimer, I forgot to mention this, for those who aren't here yet, for those who are new here, for those who haven't seen my videos, I usually do a roundup of videos of Kickstarters focusing on the value proposition, focusing on whether this is a good use of your money or you're effectively paying early, paying more for whatever other reason, whether it's supporting the creator, whether it's FOMO, whether it's whatever the reason is. I try to differentiate between a good back, something that you will likely be able to sell or trade for the same value you paid for it, versus something that you're jumping into for other reasons. Now, S.H.E.L. very much is a safe back. Mythic Games, their games so far have historically held their value, despite having other issues that are not great. They have some issues with rules, with errata, with typos, with things that don't work together in terms of all the content. They do have those issues, but past those issues, they usually have well-liked games and people who are willing to pay for those well-liked games. So if you are on the fence about S.H.E.L., rest assured this is one where if you don't like it, you will be able to get your money back, including your shipping costs. In terms of optional buys, I don't know how well their playmats do, so I don't want to give an opinion there. I can tell you that Command playmats hold their value and then some. I don't know about Mythic Games playmats. I have not looked into that. Art books in general are a bit of a risk. If you find someone who likes them, great. And these other, textured dice, leather dice trays, those also fall in the category of if you find the right person, great. If you don't, you might be spending more than, you need to. Next up on the list, that was longer than I want to spend on S.H.E.L., but next up on the list, we have Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. This is a tough one because I'll explain why it's a tough one as I get into it. So first of all, Power Rangers, if you haven't heard of it yet, this is I believe it's the second or third, it's either the second or third, I don't know which one, Kickstarter in terms of covering this game and giving more content for this game. It's generally been well liked by people, including people who don't like Power Rangers, which is a big thing for me because I didn't grow up in Power Rangers, I have no real interest, and I hate it when a good game really needs the theme to drive it, and I don't like that theme. If I like the theme, I don't mind, but if I don't like the theme, well, then what's driving it? I've heard from multiple people I know as well, personally, who do not care about the Power Rangers franchise at all, that this game has something appealing about it, meaning not that they can define why they like this game more than other games, but rather they find it fun, they find it well done, they find it engaging in a way they wouldn't necessarily think of, and that's great. So if you're looking for the game in terms of whether it's a good game or not, I believe generally the feedback has been pretty positive, so that's off the bat. And if you like Power Rangers, well, even better, even more of a reason. In terms of value proposition, this one's more of a expansion, and then they also have you can get more stuff, including an all-in pledge. This is a slightly tougher one on the value proposition. It seems, so first of all, let's cover this all-in pledge. This all-in pledge is $625 for everything they've done till now. They have a great little handy-dandy chart over here. Let's take a look at it. This is everything. They have the villain pack. You can get the villain pack. You can get just the Rise of the Psycho Rangers. Let's Rock It. Or then every single thing ever produced for this game. For me, I personally am passing on this one because I do want to try it, I do want to get it, I am not willing to commit just yet, and in terms of what you get in the Kickstarter, I'm fine getting the retail. I'm not seeing enough here to really incentivize me to specifically pay the Kickstarter premium to get those extra few things here and there. Now, don't get me wrong, I am definitely a FOMO person, and once I like a game, I will get all the content, so if I do later try it, then yes, I'll be trying to hunt down every single little thing for it, regardless of whether it's worth it or not. But for right now, as someone who is not into it, I am currently not backing it. In terms of whether it's something you'll see your money back on? It seems to be yes. I mean, these expansions are a little trickier. If you're just getting the expansion and just paying the shipping cost, it's a little trickier to give an opinion there. But overall, this is a game that has held its value, although not hugely in demand. This is not a game that you can, list it on Board Game Geek or whatnot, and someone's going to be snatching up in a minute for what you paid for it or more. Rather, this is a game that there's enough people who want it and not enough people selling it that if you're patient, you can put it up, ask what you paid for it, ask in that range, maybe even a little more depending on the pledge levels and how much you got, and you probably will get your money back. It does seem to be selling. If you look at, average sales on the past games, if you look at who's been buying it, who's been selling it, generally it is selling at or above its value, which is a good sign. In general, a good tool to utilize. Let's actually do this right now while we're on here. So yeah, this is a very good option. Just type in Power Rangers, find it on Board Game Geek, scroll down to the price history. You can look at the current market as well. And if you take a look at the price history, look for something on the more expensive side. So for instance, at a glance, looking at this $275 pledge level, that seems to be more than retail. So we click on that and we see this is the regular, this was like the $150 pledge level being sold for $275. This is a good tool to use. Always check out Board Game Geek, check out eBay, check out sold listings, and you'll get a feel for whether past games have sold for at or above their value. Obviously, this trick only works with specific games that have a relaunch Kickstarter as opposed to completely new franchises. Next up out the gate, we have Tiny Ninjas. This is easily confused with the Tiny Epic Heroes, Tiny Epic series because, well, it's tiny, it says tiny, and it's in a tiny box. But it's not, it has nothing to do with that. There's room for more than one small box game on the market. This one's currently at $57,000 out of a $14,000 goal. It's by a company out of Canada. It seems to be, this is their second Kickstarter. They previously had another one for Tiny Ninjas, and this is Tiny Ninja Heroes, as well as Tiny Ninjas both. And they differentiate between the two games, this little handy dandy sheet, where basically it comes down to playtime, and then the luck versus strategy. Tiny Heroes has more focus on strategy and less luck, and Tiny Ninjas is more luck, less strategy. So that's the short overview on the game itself. Past that, it's a game that can be played in a box. It's a game that's appealing. In terms of the value proposition, this is a very, very hard one. This is one that has, so far, it seems to be hard to get, which changes the entire value proposition. It doesn't matter how much stuff is in the box. It doesn't matter how much you're paying for something. If you can't get it for less and you want it, that's a big thing. When I talk about value proposition, I never consider the amount of components relative to price on its own. Rather, I consider that in consideration with availability as well. If a game is not available, then the value it's worth is how good it is, and if you can't get it for less, you can't get it for less. So this game, because of the fact that it's hard to get, it's very hard to define the value proposition. In terms of the pledge levels here, sheer content-wise, if you're comparing it to, let's say, the Tiny Epic series, which is the best comparison, sheer content to value ratio is not there. Looking at this basic pledge where you can get one game, you're basically paying $30 once you count for shipping to get one of these, and you can usually get these for far less. If you pay for the second level pledge or whatnot, the both thing, you're paying $47 plus another $10 shipping, plus $3 or whatever it is for the promo pack. You're out $60 for two of these games, which, again, gameplay-wise might be there. Sheer contents and components, that's not a great value proposition, but it's very hard for me to give an opinion here because the limited availability on the market. If you try to look to buy Tiny Ninjas from the past Kickstarter, you can find a few people selling it, if that. There's a few people trading it, a few people selling it. This is not a readily available game. And because of that, I do strongly recommend backing it if this interests you. This is not a game that's going to be flooding the market. At $57,000 and 1,500 backers, this is not a game that's going to be all over the place, readily available, easy to get. If this game appeals to you, I do recommend backing it, which is why for myself, I probably am backing it. It bothers me a little bit just because I feel like I'm overpaying in consideration to what I normally do on Kickstarters, but because it's hard to get, I'm willing to make that consideration. And specifically, the reason I'm interested in the game is because it's got ninjas, adorable little ninjas, and my son loves ninjas. My daughter is a big gamer. My son plays games, but not as much. I would love to get him into more of a tactical two-player game, and a game all about ninjas is the way to go for me. Number 4 on this list is Tapeworm. It hurts me to cover this, and yes, that is me being a gamer snob. I'm sorry, I'm definitely a gamer snob. I apologize. I'm not into gatekeeping. I'm not into keeping anyone out of the hobby. I'm not into any form of elitism in the typical sense. But I mean, it's a $750,000 Kickstarter on a game that does not look like it's. Anyways, let's go into it. Tapeworm is by Edmund McMillan, a designer of Binding of Isaac. He has previously had multiple successful Kickstarters. He's generally also Super Meat Boy as well. He's had successful products. He will continue to have successful products. I wish him all the best, all whatever. This game, having looked through the rules, having gone through how to play this game, I don't have a better way of saying this than this is a typical mass market party game with a bizarre theme that will appeal to enough people. Similar to Exploding Kittens or Throw Burrito, any of these. And don't get me wrong, anyone who enjoys those games, great, by all means. The part where I would say I don't think people enjoy them as much is how many of these games show up on the secondary market after, as soon as the 11,000 people have gotten them, and half of them either don't play it, throw it out, or trade it away. And don't take that half at face value. It could be whatever number. But these games generally get a lot of hype and a lot of publicity and a lot of backers, but they have a huge secondary market dump after the fact, which speaks a lot to the actual value of the game in terms of whether people like it or just are temporarily intrigued by it. And so that discussion is simultaneously going to be my value judgment on it, which is, don't back it. You will be able to pick this up later, cheaper, on the secondary market very, very easily. When you have one of these giant successful Kickstarters that just take over and tons of people back, tons of people buy, exploding trolleys, whatever it is, any of these, they will be cheaper later, rest assured. Assuming you're willing to buy used. If you're only buying new, it's a different conversation. That's something I should talk about in general. But if you're willing to buy used, this will be available. Don't back it now. Get it next time. Alternatively, if you're enjoying it, if you want it, go ahead and back it. I mean, a big thing I'm very into is I'm giving you the value aspect to things, as opposed to that there are multiple other reasons to back things. There's supporting the creator, which if you want to, that's great. There's personal FOMO, which again, it's a factor. I try to control for that. I try to minimize that as much as possible, but if you don't want to, that's your decision. There's getting the game early, which can be worth more to you depending on what game it is, how much you're interested in. All these other factors, anything I listed, more that I didn't list, they are all the decisions that you should make as to whether you're going to back something. I am just here to give you one aspect, and you can let that factor into your decision tree however you want. Number 4 on this list is Railroad Ink Challenge, and this is a tough one for me. I walked into this Kickstarter with the idea that I would not back it. I love Railroad Ink, don't get me wrong. I have both red and blue. I totally plan on getting these other ones. But just out of a quick glance at the price point, a quick glance at the content, I was like, I can continue playing my red and blue for a while. I will wait for these to come out later. I will wait for them to get them, whatever. I'm not in a rush, and I don't need, because I already have the red and blue, I don't have that FOMO aspect. I can wait for the challenge cards and the slightly variations to the expansions. That being said, I have changed my mind after going through everything, and will be backing it, but it's hard to determine the value aspect of things. So, let's cover the pledge levels, because that really goes into it. The pledge levels here are, starting off the bat, we have the basic one. Get a copy of Railroad Ink for $20 plus shipping. I don't recommend that. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. Next from there, we have get the bundle with a few extras as well. This is already a better discussion because you're getting some of the things that will not be available easily after the fact. So this is already a better pledge level if you want it. Plus the shipping's more distributed. So I do recommend this one if you're interested in the game. We'll come back to the value aspect shortly. Then we have Urban Planner, even more things, and then the collector at $83 with everything including the box. And I'm actually going to scroll down to those bundles here. They did a good visual representation of them. Wait for it, here we go. So here's a good idea of what you're getting. This is one of either game. This is both games plus the solo board and the teleport die, which actually solo board and teleport die come in the first pledge as well, I should mention that. Then the Urban Planner, which gives you this big box, which is a big factor. And finally the collector, which gives you the big box, a whole bunch of these miniature expansions. And off the bat, I will say I do not recommend Urban Planner. I would say once you're at that price point, I do recommend going up a notch and getting everything. Meaning once you're interested in that aspect, why not pay the little bit extra and get the additional content here? I feel it's worth it. In terms of the value proposition, these are all tough ones because Railroad Ink in general is a well sought after game. It's a game that people like. It's a game that people will want. I'm not worried about whether people will want the game. But what's trickier here is the fact that you have all these other aspects to it. You have these giant maps for a larger game. You have the box, which gives you a way to store it. And by the way, I was actually turned off by the box at first. I should note that, because I took a look at the box and I was like, I don't need a barrier to entry to getting one of the easiest games off my shelf. I'm not interested in that. But if you look at this little GIF here, it has this presentation. If you put it on the box on your shelf in the right way, it's a quick fold, unfold, pull out. I thought it was gonna have to be like a take off my shelf, pick up the box, which is not a big deal, but I just don't need to add more layers of restriction to playing games. So the box does a turn off for me initially, but now I'm on board with it. And it does have room. You can see this little slot here. It does have room for all these extras as well. It's not just the 4 games. It has room for everything you need. So it's going to come down to how much people want that game. This is a game that is well liked. I believe you will have no problem getting your money back for the full bundle if you go for it. It's not a guarantee. It's hard to really say for these things. It's never a guarantee, but there's definitely a degree of hesitation with whether I think it'll have that staying power. But just taking a look, in terms of the pledge levels with the box, we currently have 489 people backing it. That's the first one. And we have another 3,275, okay? So the question becomes, how many of those people will like the game? How many will keep the game? How many will trade the game on? Those are not things to know easily. But then the question is, from there, how many people will want that box? It is... If you don't like the game, it's a harder decision. For me, I like the game and I want those extras enough, and I'm not certain about the secondary market after the fact that I'll pay the extra whatever. Meaning I don't know what the extra, I don't know what the differential is, but I'll pay a little bit of it because I don't know either way, and this way I get it earlier. And I love those large boards. I definitely want those large boards. All the expansions are great, just more stuff for a game I thoroughly enjoy. So that's Railroad Inc. It's not a clear win, but it's certainly a well-liked game, which does help in these discussions. Next up, we have War of Whispers. War of Whispers is a fascinating looking game. I can only say looking because I haven't actually played it yet, but it is a game that I have waiting for me. I'm planning on getting it. I haven't actually gotten a copy yet, but I planned on getting it, and for right now, I will be canceling those plans and backing the Kickstarter instead. War of Whispers got rave reviews from Shut Up and Sit Down, which caused it to be absolutely out of supply everywhere. Nobody has it. Everybody wants it. I'm honestly a little surprised that it's only at $75,000, and you should take that into account before I say all these other things about how popular the game is, because clearly it's popular but not popular enough that it got $300,000 like Railroad Inc. did. Railroad Inc. was $300,000, I believe it was. Let me see here. Yeah, almost $400,000. So War of Whispers is a dudes in a map kind of style game with lots of betrayal and tactics and politics and all this, manipulation, sly maneuvering. They have this little Dark Alliances expansion pack. It seems to be small enough that it looks like the opportunity to do a second Kickstarter as opposed to the actual focus on an expansion pack, but who knows. Either way, not against it, don't get me wrong, but let's cover the game and the pledge levels. So off the bat, we have $7 for the expansion, we have $39 for the Standard Edition and Dark Alliances pledge. This is the Standard Edition. I do not recommend this one. Well, I take it back. That's not true. I don't think this is the best choice, but it's not bad. And then finally we have the 59, not finally, then we have 59 for the Loyal Spy Masters. This is only relevant if you've backed previously. And then we have the full $75 for everything, plus shipping factored in as well, for the Collector's Edition and Dark Alliances. Now, this is going to come down to whether the game is good, whether the game is wanted. This is $75 plus, $10 shipping, $15 shipping. That brings you to $90 for a single game without tons and tons of miniatures. So what are you getting for that? Well, it is a deluxified edition. It's got a silver foiled and varnished box. I tend to not care about that stuff, but if you do, then great. It has the regular content of the game itself, and it has a bunch of these extras. It has a larger game board. It has, actually, that might be for both editions, I've checked, but it has all these extras that you don't get otherwise. It has 13 towers, 12 cities, these 3D minis, basically, 3D aspects to the game that are tokens that will specifically be for, the Collector's Edition. So it takes a good game and deluxifies it, which is always a good treatment. But the problem with deluxified games always comes down to whether people want them. If they don't want them, you just paid extra money for a game nobody cares enough about. If people do want them, well, great. Then you can take advantage of that. Now, this is where it's I do believe all these pledge levels are good back. I should all meaning any pledge level that comes with the base game. With the Dark Alliance expansion, it's a little trickier just because it's so small and what are you actually getting for it. But in terms of why I think this is a good back, it comes down to, again, Board Game Geek. And again, this is another good trick, one that only works with reprints or deluxified or whatever. But War of Whispers over here, let me see, there we go. War of Whispers is a 7.6 on Board Game Geek. Great, not stunning. Overall rank is 2,700. Again, this is not like amazing. This is good. It's not great. But here's what is great, and this is a factor. There are 15 people trading it and 377 people who want it. That is a huge differential in terms of the people who are getting rid of their copies versus the people who want a copy. And that is a huge factor when determining. I mean, right now this game has 1,300 backers, so a whole bunch of people are going to get this all of a sudden. But you have to understand, Board Game Geek's for trade, want and trade is not used by everybody, not by a long shot. So the fact that those numbers are so different is, don't be scared off by that difference. Look more at the ratio. With 15 people trading it and 377 people wanting it, this is a game that clearly has demand. It clearly has people who want it, people who are not trading it. That low trade number means, let me take a look at people who own it actually. Own is 742, okay? That means that's a tiny amount of people who are getting rid of their game. That's a tiny amount of people who said, this game isn't good, this game is not a game I care about, and this game I want to move on from. This is a game that is clearly well liked by the people who have it, and that adds a lot of safety net to this collector's edition of the game. So I do think this is a completely safe back. I will be backing it even though I've never played it. I do plan on playing it, and if I don't like it, I will trade or sell it for its value or more. Number 7 on this list is Tribune, and Tribune really hurts me. This is one that I saw the announcement for, and I was like, boom, I am all in. I love Tribune, a remastered classic. Excellent, I am in. Don't even need to look further. Turns out I need to look further. This is a game that is a hard pass for me as of right now. It takes an amazing, incredible game, one of my favorite games, definitely what I consider a sleeper hit in terms of the actual rating on the game isn't, amazing, but everyone in my group really likes this game. I like this game. I find it's a great mix of worker placement, set collection, cutthroat backstabbery. There are small aspects of the game I feel could have been more elegantly done, but overall I love the game. And this game is coming with the game. It combines the expansion and the base game together. Off the bat, I will say I don't really recommend the expansion as much. Add some things, but I think the base game is much better than the expansion. This adds a new faction. It changes slightly the Colosseum. So basically it changes up the game. It's not a pure reprint. It does change aspects to the game. The problem is I despise the board layout. Despise is too extreme. That's not true. I think the board layout is adequate. I think the board graphic design is adequate. I think the original is significantly better. The original the colors here are glaring instead of subtle. The original has more subtle colors. The board layout here is just a bunch of card rows as opposed to a sequential card row. The art and graphic design is okay. The original was not amazing, don't get me wrong. But the original, in my opinion, was far better than this. And the problem is, if this was just my own opinion, I would wash it, goodbye, who cares, good riddance to bad rubbish. My own opinion is just that. It's my own opinion, it's my own taste, it's just a commentary on whether something appeals to me. The problem is, if you pay attention to the comments here, if you pay attention to the comments, right now they have 482 backers, 31,000 out of 8,000, which is, 8,000 goals is just ridiculous, it just means we're publishing the game either way, but the comments are fairly exclusively critical. There's not a lot of love for what's going on here. The fact that they have 482 backers is great. I'm happy for them. I wish them as much success as possible. But in terms of the actual comment section, basically almost every single one of these comments is a nay to what's going on here. So factor that in, the fact that many people do not seem to liking it, and enough of them actually are in on it and don't seem to like it. In terms of the pledge levels, it's $69 plus shipping and taxes to get the game. That price-wise, I don't think it's a terrible price. I don't think it's a great price. Tribune is available, if you want to get the old edition of Tribune, you can basically pay that much and get it, or pay less than that and get it. So I don't think the price point is really the issue here. I think the issue here is that there's enough dislike for the updated game that I don't think this will be well sought after. I don't think this is a game that people are going to be like, oh, I want the newest edition of Tribune. There are definitely going to be some people who want that new expansion, want the updated rules. Myself as well, even though I'm not interested in the game and I'm not backing it, there's always a part of me that wants those extras, those new things, and what am I going to do? But in this case, I prefer the old edition graphic design and layout enough that I am not willing to make the upgrade based on what's currently being offered here. If they scrap and relaunch the Kickstarter, I can have a conversation. For right now, it's a hard pass for me. In terms of whether this is a safe bet for your money, I recommend just picking up the older edition. Find it on eBay, find it on Board Game Geek Market, find it at BoardGameCo.com. That's us over here. So yeah, it's sadly a hard pass for me on a game that I thought would be an insta-back the second I saw it. Number 8 on this list, we have S.H.E.O.L. S.H.E.O.L is another game I did a full covering on. You can link up to that. I'll link to that up above. S.H.E.O.L is a game that, first of all, just for the record, I mentioned this in the last video, they are still on track to hit their pledge. We live in the age of everything being funded in 5 minutes, which certainly helps when you have an $8,000 goal on a project over here. But S.H.E.O.L put a $330,000 goal, which does make it a game that is not as clear that it will or won't back, but it is on track. It's hitting more than 10 grand a day, which is what they need to hit. And the final 24 hours, 48-hour push will be an additional 30, 40 grand or somewhere in that range. It might be more, I don't know. But right now they are on track to actually fund. In terms of the gameplay itself, you can watch my full video on it as well. It looks intriguing, looks interesting. I'm not going to do a full deep dive here. It looks interesting, looks well done. It seems to be liked by the people who have it so far. My biggest problem with it was the value proposition was not there. The amount they were asking compared to the amount that you were getting, if you compare it to other games, it just wasn't what I think is equitable. And that usually means that now it's a question of how hard the game is to get later, and a question of how good the game is. A really good game, a game like Too Many Bones, Too Many Bones, is a game that can charge a lot more money for less value than you would normally get, because the game holds up enough and you just can't get it cheaper elsewhere. So this is really going to come down to how good is the game, how much do people like it, how much people want it, and how many people have it and are getting rid of it. Those are the factors that are going to come down to it, which means I don't think it's a bad back, I just think it's a risk. You can do what you want, make your own judgment calls. I do not think it's a bad use of your money. It's just you taking a risk as to whether or not this game will be something that's worth it. And for myself, I wasn't pulled in enough, or I'm currently not pulled in enough by the game itself to take that risk. I'm intrigued, I'm interested, I do want to try it, but not enough to currently take that risk. So that's my 2 cents on S.H.E.O.L. Not a bad back, just not a safe back. Finally, number 9 on the list is Tiny Epic Pirates. This is by Gamelin Games, and it's currently killing it with 19 days to go, almost at 500,000. It seems like every single Kickstarter these guys do, Scott Alms, a great guy, it seems like every Kickstarter these guys do just gets better and better in terms of the amount of people who are interested, the amount of people who want it, and I will say I am very intrigued by this game. I will not be backing it, unfortunately, because, well, 2 reasons. First of all, on a personal level, I have been interested in every single Tiny Epic games so far, but I haven't felt the need to keep any of the, I think, 3 that I've played. I've played Tiny Epic Defenders, Tiny Epic Quest, and Tiny Epic Galaxies. And I've enjoyed them all. I'd happily play them, but I didn't feel the need to keep any of them, and I'm kind of interested in trying out the rest, but the other ones aren't necessarily rated as well, so I'm a little hesitant. I actually have Tiny Epic Tactics on my shelf that I still want to try. So I do still want to go through them. I still enjoy them. I just haven't enjoyed them enough to keep. That being said, Tiny Epic Pirates has a rondel mechanic, and I love rondel mechanics, so I'm even more intrigued. But because of the fact that I've always felt they were sacrificing something by making it a Tiny Epic game, I always felt they gave you a lot of experience without the experience I fully want, so I'm not going to be backing it because of that, but I will certainly try it on the secondary market later. Which brings me to point 2, these games generally, I mean, let's take a look at the pledge levels. It's usually $25 for the retail version, don't recommend that, it'll be cheaper off the bat. I don't see the point of this pledge level at all. It will be cheaper, it'll be cheaper from retailers, it'll be cheaper on the secondary market, there's no point backing it at this pledge level. The only one to even discuss, in my opinion, are the deluxe or the all-in deluxe. There, at least you're getting something that's harder to get, which eliminates other retail stores as a competitive price point when making that value aspect, the value call. It does mean that you still have to look at the secondary market, which is where I look, because I get a lot of games in secondary market. Board Game Co. is all about buying and trading used games. We have new games as well, but we trade with people a lot. So we get all that secondary market action, and we see all the people trading in these games. The Tiny Epic series does get traded in a lot. It's very easy to get these games, even at the deluxe version, for less than what you're going to have to pay here. Meaning, once you factor in shipping, these are games that will be cheaper later after the fact. Don't get me wrong, like Paladins of the West Kingdom, Viscounts of the West Kingdom, or other games I've commented on, I'm thrilled for the success they are seeing on this Kickstarter. I wish them nothing but the best, and these generally are games that are liked. This is not a conversation as to bad game or bad price point. Rather, I personally don't feel the need to jump in on this to get this earlier. I would rather be patient and get it for $10, $15 cheaper for the same thing later down the road. If it intrigues you, if it interests you, go ahead and back. It's not a lot of money. This is one of those, one of my last videos, I talked about how I sat there and I got something that was more expensive than I would normally pay for it because I wanted it. In this case, if you have that FOMO aspect, if you want this, if you want to give yourself that leeway, it is certainly not an expensive game to give yourself that treat yourself aspect for. So Go ahead, back it, don't back it. That's my 2 cents. Looks like a great game, and I wish Gamelin Games all the best. Great company. And finally, last on this list on this ridiculously long Kickstarter roundup video that is possibly my longest one. I feel each one of these videos gets longer and longer, but I have to start doing these more frequently so I don't cover 10 Kickstarters. We have Dawnshade, and this is another one that crushed my heart, my soul, my whatever. Dawnshade is a game that I saw all the promo stuff before it came out. I saw their Facebook page, their emails, their content, whatever it was. I was super intrigued by this. Obviously, it looks like Too Many Bones. It does differentiate itself in a lot of ways. There will be similarities, don't get me wrong. It's heavy focused on neoprene mats and chips, and the neoprene mat thing is a sore point. We'll come to that. But it is a game that is going to have reminiscent aspects of Too Many Bones, but it's also being very much its own beast in the process. This is a JRPG, choose your own adventure style narrative game with there's definitely a story aspect, not a huge narrative game, but a lot of things going on here. Sadly, they are having a lot of missteps with their first campaign, and this went from something that I was totally all in for to something I am currently passing on. The good news is it has 26 days to go, so that means I'll probably talk about it in another roundup if there are any changes. If there's nothing really changes, I may not, but it is a game that the pledge levels are really what kills it here. So first of all, before we get to the pledge levels, I will say this is something that it's not a problem for me, it's not a problem I saw, but if you pay attention to the comment section, it's definitely a huge problem for a lot of people. This is very much a US privilege thing or whatnot, but the pledge levels, the shipping fees for international backers were just off the charts crazy, supposedly. They are in the middle of negotiating cheaper rates, they're in the middle of trying to fix that, they're in the middle of trying to improve that, so again, that's why I will try to update this later, but a lot of people were turned off by just how expensive it would be compared to other similar products. In terms of the pledge levels, we have the $98 kinship pledge or the $148 level where you get extra chips, weighted chips for everything in the game. The problem, I wasn't turned off yet. The problem is, what happened next is, what do we have here? We have kinship, okay, I don't know. What we have next is, they offered these, let me find the mats here. These mats over here are not neoprene mats. These are regular boards, and it very much seems, especially because of the Too Many Bones thing, this is where it really hurt them, because you think Chip Theory Games, you think neoprene mats was, so that connection really hurt them here. But in terms of the optional buys, they have, if I can scroll to it, here we go. We have a bunch of mats available. The all-in mat pledge for $45 for more mats. So suddenly your $150 all-in pledge for a premium game is suddenly $200, which means now people are comparing it to not just Undertow. If you're comparing it to Undertow in the Chip Theory Games line, I think this was a good value proposition. It was a good back. It still had enough equitable content, and it would come down to how good the game is. But now people are comparing it to Too Many Bones, which has more content and is a well-established property, and it's a great game. So especially for someone who doesn't have Too Many Bones, this should be an easy decision. Get Too Many Bones, don't get this. Again, they are different games, but there are similarities and there is overlap to the general design style they're going for here. So if you don't have Too Many Bones, go ahead and get Too Many Bones. It's a better choice than this because we know it's an incredibly well-liked game, and the price point is giving you more content. In terms of whether or not this is a good, if you have Too Many Bones already, this might be a game that you're interested in. It's a game that I certainly will be happy to pay that premium price if and only if I know it's a good game. If I know it's a great game, if I know it's a game that I'll enjoy, if I know it's a game that I'll like, I will pay that premium. I don't mind paying for games I like. But right now, it's just too high a price to take a risk on. This is a lot of money, because I'm not going to get the $100, game without premium chips, without the neoprene mats. I could, I'm not going to. I'll just wait the secondary market for that. So for me, it's either $200 or nothing, and that's a big risk on a first-time creator where I don't think the value is very clear. This very much does fall in. I don't talk about this a lot, but factor in your other decision points. If you want to support a creator, if you just have that FOMO aspect, if you don't know if this will be available or not, go ahead and back it. I'm not telling you not to back, not by a long shot. I'm telling you that I was super excited about this. I know many others were, and between the international shipping and the general price point for the components, it's very, very hard for me to justify that price. As of now, I am not backing this. I believe for those who get it, it will either be an incredible game, in which case it will hold its value. I mean, the 633 backers right now, we have 26 days to go, but let's say it hits 2,000 backers. with 2,000 backers, if this is a great game, people will want it after the fact. It'll be worth the price point. But it's just a lot of money to take a risk on, especially when I already have too many bones that doesn't get played enough. I will say I did like the 1 to 4 players and the 30 minutes per player, solo 60 minutes. I like that breakdown. It does speak to me. I am very interested in this game. I'm totally 100% interested. I'm not willing to take the plunge or the risk right now. That's it. 10 games, half-hour long video. I hope you enjoyed this roundup. Let me know in the comments down below, which Kickstarter are you backing and why? Which of these do you disagree with me on? Which of these, if I said Tribune looks terrible and whatnot, are you backing Tribune, and if so, why? Or pick any of these, or just agree with me entirely. I don't really care. It's always fun to engage with you guys down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. As usual, I'm Alex from Board Game Co. You can subscribe down below, you can like this video, you can comment, share it with any other friends who you either want to suck them into Kickstarter, or you want them to spend less money on Kickstarter. Whatever it is, always happy to see more people. And that's basically it. I'll see you guys next time.